Resident Evil Revelations 2 is filled to the brim with the most dark and terrifying enemies from the series. From the super disturbing mutations of the Revenant, to the twisted story of Alex Wesker, all the way to the sadistic creation of the Orthrus. Here is the lore of every enemy from Resident Evil Revelations 2. Dr. Alex Wesker was a high-ranking Umbrella Pharmaceuticals employee who played the role as the primary antagonist of this game. Her early life and true surname are unknown, though she was taken from her parents at an early age to take part in a eugenics project known as Project Wesker. As part of the project, she was given a privileged upbringing with access to the best education around, while at home being instilled with the worldviews of Dr. Oswald E. Spencer. Spencer's ultimate goal was that these children would be infected with a progenitor virus strain and usher in a utopian superhuman society. As a young adult, Alex left her home to pursue a higher level education in a field of her choosing and was eventually headhunted by Umbrella Pharmaceuticals as one of its candidates. By the 1990s, Alex was mostly or even fully aware of Project Wesker's true motives and was able to keep this a secret to others while being a head acquaintance of Dr. Spencer. In 1998, the Wesker candidates were infected with the prototype virus as part of the next phase in the project. Alex and Albert were the only confirmed survivors of this procedure, though Albert was able to fake his death for several months. The virus had a 20% probability of negligible mutation for each candidate and became a certainty in Alex due to an incurable illness that she developed, and because of this, she possessed no superhuman powers. Alex herself was not as loyal to Dr. Spencer, as he believed and made sure to use her position to build a power base of her own, while Umbrella Pharmaceuticals still had resources that she could use. On July 19th of 2000, Alex and a team of Umbrella researchers and her right-hand man Stuart landed on Scene Island, which was a small Russian island which suffered from an economic collapse during the fall of the Soviet Union. Alex chose to take advantage of their desperation before using them as guinea pigs. Using Umbrella's funds, Alex kickstarted an economic recovery by hiring the locals to construct a research complex. Seeking to eventually use the locals as guinea pigs, she also saw the reopening of its mine, which made an ideal place for abducting test subjects. Unaware of this, she was hailed as a goddess figure by the locals for her actions. After the final collapse of Umbrella in 2003, Alex remained at Dr. Spencer's side. Sent out to Umbrella's old facility on a remote island, Alex was instructed to pivot her viral weapons research toward the creation of a new virus, which had the ability to stop human cells from aging. To be infected with such a mutagen would have made him biologically immortal. Already feeling the effects of her own degenerative illness, Alex gave up on the project and abandoned the island, taking all of the research data with her to Scene Island, where she then reformed it into the T-Phobos project in 2006. Instead of keeping an aged body alive, Alex's new project aimed at developing human technology that could digitize her consciousness and transfer it into a superhuman host body created with T-Phobos. During work on this new project, Alex received news about Spencer's death in mid-2006. As well as Albert Wesker's death in early 2009. When she heard about Albert's death, she took a personal blow, and as the sole remaining of the 13 candidates of Project Wesker, she insisted that the project should be sped up. Outside T-Phobos, Alex also began work on the Kodoku project, which aimed to create new bioweaponry, being developed by loyal researchers within Umbrella's abandoned base. T-Phobos research was tested on the wider population since 2008, largely by recruiting the mine workers as a source of research and passing their absence off as signing on to a full year's work. Alterations to the virus in January of 2010 reduced the chances of killing the host and the chance of them developing an immunity. Even with this being the case, the test subjects continued to fail, with the hosts having been overcome by their fears and turning into mutants rather than becoming viable superhuman hosts. With the virus eventually finalized, though without any candidates, day-to-day work moved on to modifying the Ouroboros virus. Running out of options, Wesker began looking for new candidates from outside the island and found her solution with Neil Fischer, the leader of TerraSave. The two agreed to a pact. He would supply the members of his own organization who had experiences with facing mutants in exchange for a sample of Ouroboros, so a vaccine could then be created, rendering it worthless as a black market product. Sometime in 2011, the operation began with the abduction of over a dozen people at a company party, with Fischer himself surrendered as an alternative body to use should the others fail. One by one, the pool was met with failures again, seeing the mutation of Gabriel Chavez when he attempted to escape from the island in a booby-trapped helicopter, while on the other hand, several others were killed by mutants, leaving only 3 remaining candidates: Claire Redfield, Moria Burton, and Natalia Corda. Alex's team continued to monitor the survivors' progress and concluded that the child Natalia Corda was the ideal candidate, as her childhood trauma made her incapable of feeling fear. Fischer was ordered to abduct Corda and take her directly to Alex, so she could be put in a comatose state for the next 6 months to ensure the experiment's success. Seeking to tie up loose ends, Wesker infected Fischer with Ouroboros to turn him into a monster, rather than simply handing it over. Alex's right-hand man, Stewart, oversaw the killing of all researchers ahead of his own suicide, so they should not accidentally interfere with the other plans. When the weeks approached before Corda's awakening, Alex began planning her death and released the Ouroboros BOWs known as Revenants onto the island, with the goal of killing everything left. As Corda was placed into storage in a bunker beneath her tower, Wesker was confronted by Redfield and Burton, the 2 remaining candidates who also became unnecessary to her plans. Believing everything to be complete, Wesker pulled a handgun out and shot herself in the head, which triggered the facility's self-destruct system. However, Wesker did not die as planned. In her final moments between pulling the trigger and her intended death, she felt the fear of dying and becoming nothing. Her unconscious body began to quickly mutate, turning her into a powerful and disfigured mutant, wearing robes and a mask to disguise her deformation. In the 6-month wait for Corda's awakening, Wesker fell into an existential crisis. She once triumphed at the project as effectively making her immortal, birthed into a new body, but was now disturbed at the idea of 2 Alex Weskers existing simultaneously. Corda began to be seen as an imposter Alex, unworthy of holding the mantle of a god. Alex eventually found Corda outside the mines, escorted by BSAA supervisor Barry Burton. Knocking Burton off a cliff, she was free to do with Corda as she pleased. Infuriated that Corda showed no sign of the copied consciousness, she declared her to be a failure and began choking her. With Corda close to passing out, something sparked in Alex's mind and she fled before finishing the job. She confronted Corda and Burton again in the mines, where she infected herself with the Ouroboros virus.
Want to transcend?
Alex tried once more to kill Corda, but was knocked to the ground by Moria Burton, who survived the past 6 months on the island as well. Chasing the 3 out to a cliff edge, Alex's time ran short when faced with a BSAA assault from their chopper. With weapons supplied by the BSAA, Alex was killed by a rocket launcher fired by Claire Redfield before she could achieve vengeance, thus ending the twisted tale of Alex Wesker. The Afflicted are humans that became infected from exposure to the T-Phobos virus. Torture and abuse triggered fear within their bodies, causing them to mutate and act violently towards non-infected people. The Afflicted are initially found in an abandoned prison complex which belonged to the former Soviet Union. A few of them are also found in the town, suggesting that the remaining inhabitants of the island were also taken to be tortured/experimented on with the virus, and then escaped confinement and started wandering around the town and sewers. The subjects had no eye contact with the daylight. Being closed in the dark cells for years caused them to become mentally unstable and make their vision weak. This is the reason why they are vulnerable to light and can be easily stunned by Moria's flashlight. As said before, the virus that creates the Afflicted is triggered by fear. When a victim reaches a certain level of anxiety and fear, they mutate into an Afflicted within seconds. The victims also seem to lose their sense of fear afterwards, feeling a mix of euphoria and fatalism. The biology for these creatures gets very dark, as their bodies and minds were heavily altered because of the virus and the terror they underwent due to extreme torture and other kinds of abuse. Their skin is yellowed, darkened, and covered in open wounds. Evidence of the torture they endured is still present, such as barbed wire tightly holding onto their flesh, and sharpened pieces of bar pipes impaled through their bodies. Driven completely mad from the pain, solitude, and fear, they react to any living person in sight with immediate violence. Through means of scratching, biting, or even using rudimentary weapons, they will do whatever they can to kill whoever they find in the areas of the prison.
Holy shit, it's gonna kill her! Come on, hurry.
Ironheads are afflicted that have been subjected to further enhancements, increasing their size and strength. They stand a head taller than regular afflicted and are considerably more durable, being able to absorb much more gunfire. Their most distinguishing feature is the metal helmet they wear, hence the name Ironheads. This helmet is completely bulletproof and appears to have been welded onto the creature's face. There are two variations of Ironheads. The first variation wears a faceplate similar to a gas mask, while the other wears a conical shaped helmet. Both variants wield crudely constructed axes that are capable of inflicting bleeding damage to any human that stands in their path. Giant whip spiders are bioweapons engineered by Alex Wesker's laboratory on Scene Island. Derived from a species of whip spider, they were not native to the island, and their entire Scene population was purposely transplanted from the tropics for research reasons. These creatures are more of an annoyance than a threat, causing minor damage to humans. However, they tend to arrive in large numbers. The Rotten is the result of radical changes in the metabolism of Afflicted after complete zombification, which takes longer than the typical T-virus-induced zombification. As with zombies, the Afflicted can stay alive despite serious injuries. All energy is spent on keeping the body active in the search for more food, and as a consequence, the body begins to deteriorate and expose the skeletal structure. A Revenant is created by stitching together various body parts into a humanoid figure before infecting the mass with the Ouroboros virus. This results in a living organism of humanoid appearance, able to move each body part like a walking marionette. When exposed to the virus, the cells are repaired and begin mutating. With the human brain dead, the emerging organism instead grows a fleshy core elsewhere on the body, which takes over brain functions. Consequently, destruction of the core will kill such a creature. Following the demise of the research team in 2011, the Revenants were free to explore the ruined island. Though it is uncertain when precisely they escaped the mines, within 6 months they and other Ouroboros mutants almost succeeded in wiping out all other life on the island. All Revenants are believed destroyed following a BSAA operation to sterilize the island. Pedro was one of the few TerraSave members that were abducted and taken to Scene Island. He awakened in a forest alongside Gabrielle, Edward, and Neil Fischer, with strange bracelets on their arms. Through these, they were contacted by a woman calling herself the Overseer, who insisted they head for the Wozek. They were then attacked and pursued by several Afflicted, which were the former residents of the island, driven insane through torture and abuse. These creatures end up getting a hold of Edward and killing him. Thinking quickly, they cut off his hand to investigate the bracelets. He and Gabrielle are separated from Neil during the pursuit before they arrived at the Wozek. Here they meet up with Claire and Moria Burton, who were also instructed by the Overseer to head there. Soon they're once again contacted by the Overseer, who informs them about a special virus with which they were injected, one that reacted solely to fear. Throughout this, he studied the bracelet they pried from Edward's body, leaving several notes strewn throughout their path. He then found a drill that he used to help Claire obtain fuel for a helicopter that Gabrielle was fixing. However, soon after, the siren in the bar was activated, calling the Afflicted, which caused them to attack the bar. Through this, he becomes more and more agitated and scared, until he mutates into a unique version of the Afflicted. He stands a head taller than Claire and Moria, and his joints, most notably his right arm, swells up, allowing him to wield the drill more effectively. His most noticeable feature is the numerous eyes that erupt from his body. Pedro in his mutated form attacked Claire and Moira with his drill and attempted to kill both of them. When they were unable to stop him, Neil appeared and ushered them to safety. 6 months later, Barry and Natalia Corda encounter a further mutated Pedro in the apartments near a crashed helicopter with Gabrielle's corpse. Pedro was aware of Gabrielle's death and began to mourn while in this state. Seeing Barry and Natalia, he attacked them with his drill until Barry ultimately managed to defeat him and acquire the drill. The Orthrus appears to have been a dog, and like the Afflicted, shows signs of heavy physical trauma and abuse. A large tube was forced into the skull, causing near decapitation. What appears to be a bear trap has also been forced into the neck area, which the creature uses to bite potential prey. It is unknown if the animal survived the torture, or whether it's a similar situation to the rotten enemies. It is believed that these animals were the first test subjects used by Alex Wesker on her experiments with fear in order to create or further develop the T-Phobos virus. The Glasp was created naturally by the T-Phobos virus that spread throughout Scene Island. As described in 2 notes, Glasp is formed almost immediately after contracting the virus. However, they do not state how the mutant arose, only that the victim immediately transforms into an insect-like thing, stating that there was one researcher named Gregory who turned into a Glasp, apparently being able to speak some words that describe how painful it is, and shouting that he wanted to commit suicide. As it can be seen, after the person mutates into Glasp, the visible human features are a face with some gray hair attached, the front part of the body, and the almost not changed human legs. The skull split in half and the brain deteriorates, forming a jaw-like opening which Glasp could open freely, turning the pelvic and abdominal areas into a large bulbous structure. The human hands have disappeared to almost nothing but tiny claws of an insect. On the sides of the body, 3 pairs of insect wings have developed. Several short spikes grew on the legs. The spine broke in half, which, as in the case of the skull, forms a jaw-like opening. The creature can produce a kind of special gas containing chemical components which causes abnormalities in the optic nerves of living creatures. This creature also has the ability to mimic the scenery by diffracting ambient light, allowing it to stealthily approach and attack prey without being seen. With strong vice-like legs, it can not only grip and hold on to the prey, but also easily break a human spine in half. When the creature captures prey, it will feed its offspring by releasing them from its body onto the victim. Sploders appear to be normal Afflicted that undergo a further mutation, causing the infected body to become covered in cysts that consume the host's upper torso, shaping it into a new form. The new creature has a deformed head and its stomach has become bloated as a result of the acidic bile stored inside. Physical damage to the body causes this bile to expand until it violently explodes, destroying the host in the process. The bile can blind and injure anyone caught in the vicinity of the explosion. Like all Afflicted, the Sploder develops a weakness to light. Prolonged exposure will cause the bile to erupt while still inside the host and instantly kill it. The Vulcanblubber is a hulking Afflicted, being significantly larger and much more durable. The creature was violently tortured, with its head being wrapped in bandages and encased in an iron cage. It carries a large urn containing an explosive substance which it can ignite using its torch, turning the substance into makeshift mortars. While the Vulcanblubber has poor thinking abilities due to the damage done to its neocortex, it still possesses enough intelligence to fire its cannon. Considering its abnormally enlarged physique, it is likely that the subject was biologically modified by various drugs in addition to T-Phobos virus. Splashers, like the Revenants, were created by stitching together various body parts into a humanoid figure before infecting the mass. This resulted in a living organism of humanoid appearance, able to move each body part as if its own, though they were noted for their form of movement, more comparable with a doll or puppet being manipulated rather than natural walking. These creatures are very similar to the Revenants, with their prime distinction being severe mutation of one limb. This mass is known to have contained a toxic pus, which could be released to incapacitate anyone in their path. The Slinger appears to be a human mutated with the Ouroboros virus. The human base is evident in the leg and abdomen section. The upper torso stops at the rib cage and opens up into a large arm, used to throw explosive parasites at their victims. The parasite then grows back, and the animation reveals the Ouroboros tentacles coming out of the arm. This creature typically appears accompanied by multiple Revenants to use as defense while it can stand behind and fire multiple parasites at its prey. The Dhurlga is an Ouroboros creature similar in appearance to the Revenant and Splasher. However, it seems to have assimilated drastically more corpses than either of those creatures, leading to a different appearance. The creature's name comes from a multiple-armed goddess in Hindu mythology known as Dhurlga. This creature has an almost tree-like appearance. A singular human lower torso is used to walk, leading to a trunk dominated by a massive yellow Ouroboros core. Above this is the creature's head, which is a wavering forest of multiple limbs. limbs, including Revenant blade arms, splasher pus arms, and an indestructible tendril-covered tentacle that ends in a massive 3-clawed hand. The Dhurlga's assimilated corpse limbs are used to protect its core, though it can also flail them to strike at nearby foes. Destroying these arms exposes the core and makes it easier to hit, but also drives the creature into a wild frenzy as it senses its vulnerability. Its thrashing tentacle can be used to grab a victim and beat them against the ground until they die. It's also an indestructible component to the creature, making frontal attacks especially dangerous as it is adept at using it as a shield. Neil Fischer was the leader of a group that provided aid during bioterrorism known as TerraSave. With the goal of exchanging his team for a sample of the Ouroboros virus, he made an agreement with Alex Wesker, allowing her to kidnap everyone at a company party. Following this, Fischer met with Wesker to demand his payment. Rather than hand over a sample, Wesker instead fired a dart at him that infected him with Ouroboros. With there being no need of him as a candidate, Fischer was now at risk to her plans. While trying to escape Alex's base of operations, Fischer was met by Redfield and Burton, who had become aware of his treachery. He defended his actions and soon after mutated. Through his mutation, Neil's personality changed and he was driven insane. Turning on Redfield and Burton, he lunged at them while declaring his intention to restore the FBC. The feeling of intense heat, however, weakened his abilities to fight back. As he tried to kill Redfield, Burton ultimately fired a gun at him, ending the story of Neil Fischer. Click this video here to find out the disturbing lore of every enemy from Resident Evil 1. Thank you for watching.